Hello. Today we're going to talk about being a lady. If you are new to this channel, my name is Eleanor. I go by Radically for Jesus on YouTube, and I make videos about head covering and modesty, homemaking, being a wife, a mama, sewing, quite a few topics in the Titus 2 realm. If that's interesting to you, please hang around and listen, and if you like what you hear, like and subscribe. On to today's topic, being a lady. These are my opinions and perceptions. Now, I guarantee you people will have different opinions and perceptions on this. It's a very subjective word, and one that some people might even say isn't part of our society anymore. Is what it is. Our society is definitely changing. I don't think too many of us would disagree on that point, but I think it's important to be a lady. My mama raised me with the intent to be ladylike. I did not always exemplify that. I definitely had a lot of improvement to do as a teenager. I was very much not ladylike at many times, as my mom is probably sitting here watching this video going, oh my word, I can't believe this child is doing a video about being ladylike, because but I'm trying, Mama. I'm trying. I do think it's important to try to be ladies. And now that I have a daughter, I'm trying to raise her to be a little lady. And it is hard. You know, kind of reminds me of the various things I used to do. You know, belching to torment my father. Yes, I did that often. And, you know, I was exceedingly good at it, unfortunately. But I admit that, one, to make you guys laugh, because I know you're laughing at me right now. That's okay. But no, it's not ladylike behavior. We should not do that. At least not in public, right? But let's talk for a minute on being a lady. I made a list this morning as I was thinking about this. I just thought it would be partly a fun topic to cover. I have a list of do's and a list of a lady does not. Still can't believe I'm doing this video, but hey, we all gotta start somewhere and learn somewhere, right? A lady does dress modestly. Definitely a lady should be dressing modestly. When one of the first and most important things that I think of when I think of a lady, I think of a person who's modest. Now, she may not be having a religious appearance about her, but I think of a modesty definitely in place. A lady dresses feminine. Now again, I know we're going to have different definitions of that, but I do tend to think of a lady in a dress or skirt. It is possible to look feminine in pants, I think, but it is a little trickier. It can be done. And a lot of your mannerisms and a lot of how you do other things will certainly make you more or less feminine. I encounter people all the time out in public, and you can see ladies who are very, very feminine even in their pants and such, and some that I'm not sure if they're guys or girls. Sometimes you can't tell. I encountered somebody at the checkout yesterday. I was like, I can't tell. And I wasn't trying to be mean. I truly wasn't sure, you know, how to speak there when I addressed them. I'm like, I don't know, is that a guy or a girl? I do not know. And I do think that to be a lady, we should be feminine. A lady shows kindness to others. She's not mean or looking to be unkind or to hurt people or anything like that. A lady dresses as cleanly as possible. This is something I've not always been perfect on, you know. I think part of going through life, sometimes you clean, you work outside, you maybe weed in your garden. You're gonna get messy sometimes. But in general, aside from doing those kinds of tasks, you try to be as clean as possible, neat. A lady is thoughtful of others, their needs and their emotions, and that can be thoughtful in many, many ways. But a lady should never be selfish and uncaring about these things. I certainly think of a lady who's being thoughtful. A lady makes people as comfortable as possible, and this can be maybe in a hospitality form. When someone comes to your home, you want them to be comfortable. You don't want to make them uncomfortable. To me, that would be an unladylike behavior. A lady uses as many manners as possible. And I think a lot of people would think of a ladylike person as someone who displays a lot of manners. Manners are society subjective, I'll put it that way. What is polite in one society is very rude in another, and we don't always know, if you're not from that other culture or society, what those actions are. I've tried to learn as many things as I can. I love those books and stuff that are on the topic of manners and you know, being ladylike, just household hints, various old-fashioned things about etiquette. I love those. I love reading those. But do I do them all perfectly? No, I don't. I try, but little things will get me, like even during videos. Like right now, my nose is itching and I'm going to scratch it. I'm sorry, I know you're not supposed to do that on video, but it's hard not to. It's important to try though. During meals, that's the thing of manners. I am working right now on my kids, trying to get better manners through the meals. That is not easy. We've been trying and they're doing better and better, but they still have some work to go. I know my parents worked really hard on teaching me a certain amount of basic ones. My dad even kind of had a game. It's funny, if I sat near him and I had my elbow on the table, he'd take my elbow and he'd whack it on the table. And he just did it to be ornery because he knew it would get my goat, so to speak. But it was little games like that. But ultimately, he was just trying to teach me a little table manners in the same turn there. But it's good to have some table manners, and the reason why is you'll end up like I did. Now, my parents had taught me basic table manners, don't get me wrong, but the first time I ever had an office job, I ended up out on one of those employee luncheons, and we had to go to a fancy restaurant, much fancier than I had ever been to in my life. And I felt so much like a fish out of water. I really, really did. I still feel like that in those kind of restaurants just because I am not a very fancy person. But in the same turn, I want my kids, I'm hoping that one day if they ever get blessed enough to go to places like that, that they can walk in and not feel as self-conscious about it as what I did. Because I felt so awkward. I still do, again, in those places, but it's like, you know, you have your cloth napkin, you put it in the lap, and you have multiple utensils to choose from that you're only supposed to use during certain courses. Yeah, some of those places are kind of like, wow. You see people joke about that on TV, but until you're actually at one, you think, oh, I'd be fine in that situation. Then you realize all the little things you're aware of, and you're very self-conscious and self-aware of, okay, I'm doing something wrong, I know it. And in that particular case, I just tried to watch everybody else. How are their table manners? What are they doing versus not doing? And I felt like the whole napkin in the lap thing was a little weird and the like, but I'm used to that part now. I don't think a whole lot about that, but I do want my kids to kind of know how to handle those situations, even though I myself still don't feel very good at them. But I think it kind of follows with being ladylike. We should use manners. We may not have to have that perfect etiquette that would hold up in a 5-star restaurant. I think a lot of us probably won't end up in those places, but we want to do the best we can, and because ultimately our manners are also about making other people feel comfortable. I was telling my kids, the whole chewing with the mouth open, that sound, oh, I cannot handle that sound. My dad couldn't handle it either. It just, oh, it's horrible. But the reason we don't do that is, aside from the fact that you look like you were raised in a barn, it's just very unpleasant for other people to hear and literally turns their stomach. And we don't want to do that. We want to be thoughtful of the other people. Part of being a lady is being thoughtful. Anyway, off of the table manners topic, that's a whole other thing. But it's a fun topic, I think. Just, I don't know. I never feel quite like I measure up on that one. Probably never will, but I'm aiming to teach my kids as best as possible. A lady uses modest actions in the things that she does. It's not just modest dress, but modest actions, and there is a very big difference. I think a lot of times when we toss the term modesty around, we think about the dress and the attire, but we don't really think about the actions. We can be very immodest in our actions too. It can be in how we walk. women walking like lumberjacks and the like. I remember mom getting onto me. Don't be so heavy-footed when I walk. Don't stomp. Things like that. Try to be more gentle, more feminine. That is something that is really, really hard for me to quantify in what I mean by that. Hopefully you guys understand. Please comment on ways we can be modest in our actions, and do compare and contrast of ways to be modest versus immodest in our actions to help us all realize what's better. How can we improve that? How can we do better? Because I wager there's probably things that I do that are still that way. I know sometimes the way I sit, I try to sit like a lady, but especially being a plus size person, sometimes that's very, very difficult. The positions and stuff. All the more reason I wear very, very long dresses. So if I do, I don't have my legs crossed or something like that, because that's difficult to do well, then I'm still covered. I don't have to worry about accidentally exposing something or of that nature. I think the classic thing people think of is how a lady sits and so forth. And like some of it was like, a lady only crosses her ankles, not her legs. I've heard that too. I presume that's a cultural thing. Most of people I've known have considered ladylike thing to do to cross your legs modestly, but I don't know. But in general, a lady should have modest actions. There are some of those I definitely agree with, and some of them I'm like, doesn't really matter, depending on what it is, the culture you're in and the environment you're in, whether or not you're at home or in public, all those things. On the lady does not list. Some of you are gonna probably laugh at this and maybe emphatically disagree. I would say, and again, my opinion here, a lady does not yell, shout, or speak loud. Now, does she never ever do that? Obviously, once in a while we all yell. Sometimes there is an emergency need to yell. Your child is about to run out in front of cars. Yes, you yell as loud as you humanly possibly can. There is a time and place for it. I mean, in general, I really find it grating. Some of this is my personality too, but I find it extremely grating to be in a room with someone, most especially another female, who is talking very, very loudly at a very loud volume constantly. Not like if they accidentally raise their voice a little when they're a little excited about something. I don't mean that. I just mean their constant volume is very, very high. One, it literally kind of gives you a sensory overload. At least it does me. But I don't find it a ladylike behavior. And I don't know if it's because mama drilled that into me to not do that. I find myself also having my kids lower the volume if they're talking very loud and people across the room can easily hear them. That's just not me. I don't like that. If I'm in a restaurant at a table talking, I don't want people 3 tables away to hear me. I don't even want the table next to me to hear. I have a very, very low volume. Now, God blessed me with a quiet, soft voice. Well, some might call that a blessing, some might call it a curse. Depends on who you are. My husband does like to tease me that he wishes he had a volume button to occasionally turn me up if he's having an ear problem. But in general, I don't like yelling and shouting. That whole thing going in Chipotle and ordering. I hate ordering at Chipotle because I have to yell my order over that counter, and it's always loud and the music blaring in there. It drives me nuts. I don't like to yell. And some of that is my introverted side because I don't like to draw attention. But I also just generally, if I see a woman who's very, very loud, I tend not to find it a ladylike thing. Now, I'm not saying if you are loud that you're a bad or a terrible person. I'm just saying that behavior is something I think we would often do well to work on. It's not a terrible thing or even like a sin issue. It's just a matter of don't draw attention to yourself unnecessarily. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Because I don't think that's a good thing. If you're doing it intentionally, especially, we just don't want to do that. Try to be more soft-spoken so you're not being a disruption to others, because that is one of the things that really, really is grating about a person who speaks very loudly, is it disrupts everybody. If you're, I read about a lady at a manicure pedicure place, that she was getting one of those, and I only ever went once in my life, don't plan on going back, but this particular person likes to go once in a while, and that's their quiet time, their relaxation, and the person sat beside them talking on the phone, very, very loud voice. I'm like, that's so rude, so rude. You really disrupt the peace and quiet of someone else, whether you're out in a restaurant or doing the mani-pedi thing or whatever. You can really disrupt other people, and I would urge those who tend to like to speak loudly to be thoughtful of others and try to lower your volume so you're not. In turn, if you're speaking to an older person who doesn't hear well, I would say it's polite and the right thing to raise your voice so they can hear you. You want them to hear you. You don't want them to strain. So some of this is completely situational, and you just have to be careful about that. But that is something I know I could probably talk for a while on, and it's a very small point on this list, is not yelling and shouting and being loud and obnoxious. And I think the reason why I don't find it ladylike is because I find a lot of it obnoxious, that some people do it intentionally. Some people do it, they wish they didn't do it, and they're trying to work on it and do better. Totally understand, that's cool. At least you care and you're trying to be thoughtful, right? A lady does not use crass language, and that can be cussing or other forms of words that just really we shouldn't be using. Now, grant you, I will not deny I slip up with the occasional bad word here and there. I try to work on that. I try to keep it ladylike, but I do slip once in a while. Not something I'm proud of by any means. It is something I am working on too. I am not perfect. Just a reminder, I am not perfect on any of this stuff. I am no better or worse than anyone else. It is something that we as ladies should not be doing, though. We need to keep our language clean. And this next point is the most convicting point of all for me. A lady does not obnoxiously burp, or pass gas in front of others. Yes, I have had a history of doing that. I admit it. It is wrong. No, it should not be done. When you're in the confines of your own home and stuff like that, it's a different matter. But what gets me now is you can use the excuse and say, oh, well, you're at home, it's okay. But if you're doing it in front of your kids, guess what you're teaching them to do too. So you find that, okay, well, just using the excuse to do it at home doesn't always work, because now I've got my kids doing it. And yes, that's a problem I'm having right now. So a lady should not be doing that, and especially not in front of her children, because it just encourages her children to do it. So if you know me in real life and you meet me and my family, please know that we're working on this. We're trying to do better. And yes, I'm sorry for my past ways. A lady does not show off or draw attention to herself. That kind of goes along in with the speaking loud and stuff, but this can be in your actions and in your dress and your attire or anything that you do. I think to intentionally draw attention to yourself, to be special, not special is not the word I'm thinking of, to be a drama queen, it's not a ladylike thing to do. A lady doesn't obnoxiously chew with the mouth open. That kind of goes back to the table manners thing again, but it's definitely not ladylike. Definitely not ladylike. I think everybody will forget maybe when they're having a lively conversation or something with their family and they're eating, and forget and accidentally talk with their mouth full a little bit, especially if it's just a little bite of food. But like I was telling my kids yesterday, we were discussing whether or not that was okay, and I said, honey, don't talk with your mouth full. And my son, he's like, my mouth wasn't that full. There was just a little bit in it. And I said, you still shouldn't do it, even with a little bit in it. But totally, it's really, really easy to forget. But we need to be very aware of that when we're eating, especially out in a restaurant or something. It is so not ladylike, right? A lady does not gossip or tell bear. I actually just done a video on that. Whether this will be posted before that one or not, I don't know. But if you haven't seen it yet, you probably will soon. But no, it is not ladylike to gossip, not at all. When I think of a lady, I don't think of somebody who is a gossiper or a talebearer. I think of somebody who you can trust your secrets with or your prayer requests with. And a lady does not put others down and elevate herself above others. And I think that's one of the points that I really, really think of when I think of a lady, as somebody who's a good person, who is selfless instead of selfish, and is thoughtful of others. I kind of think of that Ma Ingalls kind of, character, but very thoughtful of others, a good hard worker. That was one of the things that I wrote on the does list that I didn't say, I don't think, is being willing to help and work. I think that is a ladylike, a good, kind trait. All in all, these are just a few traits. I could have probably made this list a whole lot longer, and I'm sure you guys can too. So again, please leave me in the comments, what is your comparing and contrasting of ladylike behavior? What things do you think of when you think of a lady versus the things that you think, oh, that is just so not ladylike? And, feel free to talk about it. I think we can learn from each other. I'm sure, totally sure you guys can point out things that I do that's probably not within the realm of ladylike behavior, but please know I'm trying. Don't pick on me too hard. Anyway, I hope you guys have a blessed day.